Time we talk about immigration, we hear the same old catchphrase, the Home Office isn't fit for purpose. Well, apparently it was Labour's Home Secretary John Reid who first said that 17 years ago. Unbelievable. Today, some MPs have hit out at our soft immigration guidelines. Apparently, migrants, this is the sort of thing that will send me mad, can literally lie on their asylum applications and they won't get them thrown out. Get this, and I promise you I'm not making this up. Apparently, they don't have to answer questions they might find upsetting, and too many of these interviews are conducted via Zoom and not in person. One would beg to ask the question, how in the name of the Lord have successive governments done seemingly nothing to get a grip of this department? And why doesn't somebody go, you know what, if I win power, I'm going to get a Home Office that works? That's the whole thing. Joining me to discuss this first up is former Brexit Secretary David Davis, who is one of those outspoken critics. Thank God for that. David, welcome to the show. Can you explain to me, you're a politician, because I think we've gone as soft as anything. How can we have a situation where Home Office guidelines say that immigrants can literally lie to interviewers because they might find questions upsetting? What is going on, David Davis? We've gone barking mad, man.
Well, I think there's a reasonable case for that. But what I suspect is happening is that people are confusing proper attention to people's rights with gullibility. And that's what this is gullible. I mean, you have to bear in mind that the vast majority of people who seek asylum in this country are not legitimate asylum seekers. I mean, you have to pay attention, you have to have a system that properly looks after, for example, somebody who's been an interpreter for the British forces in Afghanistan and will be murdered if he goes home, on the one hand. But on the other hand, you've also got to bear in mind that something, probably over 90% of the people who apply for asylum have come, and they actually start by breaking the law. They start by arriving in a boat. They start by destroying their own passports and their own documents. I mean, if somebody arrives in your country and says, I've got no documents, meaning they've thrown them over the side of the boat in the middle of the channel, then they are starting off by trying to deceive you, and you have to treat them accordingly. You don't have to be cruel, you don't have to be rude, you just have to be very firm about how you deal with them and say, if you turn up without documents and you tell lies, you're going to lose your case, and you're going to lose it quite fast.
I'm not going to sit here and pontificate whether I think Rwanda's a good policy or not, but one thing that I have absolute belief in is that the civil service, in my humble opinion, is getting in the way of government plans and policies. And we talk about the blob and we say, is it too soft? And there will be people on this show, David, who have said the government don't really have an answer. It's an election soundbite. Is the civil service getting in the way of an efficient migration policy, in your opinion?
Well, interestingly enough, I had when I was looking at the original draft of the immigration policy back around about January or thereabouts, I called in one of the previous permanent secretaries, one of the best of the Home Office permanent secretaries in the past decades or so, and said to him, will this work? And we talked through it all. But in the middle of it all, I said, what about this question of case officers only handling, I think at the time it was about clearing about 1.4 cases a week? How on earth did that come about? And he said he said, that's not the minister's fault. And bear in mind, I'm a critic of the Home Office ministers, but he said it's not the minister's fault. That's the failure of the system. It's a failure of the management of the civil service to make this work. They've let this fall apart. And it's not just wrong by 2 or 3 or 4 times, it's wrong by 10 times. So, clearly there have been some pretty spectacular failures of management along the way. Now, I don't blame every civil servant for that, but I do hold the senior civil servants at Home Office accountable for it. They should never have let it get to this state.
It strikes me that Starmer, Sunak, everybody's talking about their 5 points and everybody's saying, we've got to stop the small boats. I don't know about you, but Sunak now is trying to get it back to where it was when he took power. There's a real chance, is there not? Well, I would say a very live chance that the failure to deal with this is going to cost your party the next election quite spectacularly, because essentially nothing seems to get better. It's their fault, this is happening, the Home Office doesn't work, we've cut this, it's the Labour Party. No, we spent money on a barge for 15 people, then they come off because of Legionnaire's disease. I mean, it is I would say, with respect, a complete embarrassment to this country, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, I'm not sure about whether it will, of itself, will cost the election. I mean, just to cast your mind back up to almost a previous century, when I was Shadow Home Secretary, which is 20 years ago now, and we had the 2005 election, there were lots and lots of problems then. We had 85% of the public saying that it was the most important problem facing the government. The Tories at that time had a 35-point lead on immigration, and we still lost the election pretty spectacularly. So I think I don't drive what I say from the politics of it, frankly. I think the most important aspect of this is the policy is leading to people dying in the middle of the channel, drowning, whatever. That's where you start from. You've got to start from the sort of moral point that this policy is not working, and it leads to deaths.